This is lesson 17, part 3, and we'll be finishing up our work with beat subdivisions. In everyday life, we measure time or duration in seconds, minutes, and hours, and in music, we measure time or duration in beats and subdivisions of those beats. The proportion between seconds, minutes, and hours is fixed. So if an hour has gone by, we can also know that 60 minutes have gone by and that 3,600 seconds have gone by. We can choose to track time in seconds, minutes, or hours, depending on which is most helpful or appropriate in any given circumstance. The proportion between beats and subdivisions of those beats into, say, half or quarter beats is similarly fixed. So if one beat has gone by, we can also know that 2 half beats went by, or that 4 quarter beats went by. We can choose to track duration or time in music by full beats or by subdivisions of those beats, depending on which is most appropriate or helpful in any given circumstance. We're going to set the metronome at 80 with our beats grouped into 4s, and we're going to practice saying our half beat notes, so our do days. We're going to say one pair of them, we're going to do that 8 times. So we're going to say 8 pairs of do day notes. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do day, 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 do day. Do that one more time. Ready, go. Do day, 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 do day. We're going to keep that metronome at 80, continue to group beats into 4s, continue to use our do day, but now we're going to say one pair, and then we're going to follow that with 3 full beats of rest. And I want you to try either whispering or mouthing the silent do day, so the subdivided pulse during those rests. And we're going to repeat that pattern 2 times. So a pair of do days followed by 3 full beats of rest that we subdivide. Metronome. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do day. Do day. We're going to do that one more time. Ready, go. Do day. Do day. We're going to lower our metronome speed down to 60 now, still grouping beats into 4s. And we're going to practice saying our sets of quarter beat notes, our do-ta-de-tas, where each syllable is worth just 1/4 of a beat. We're going to say 8 of those sets in a row. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do-ta-de-ta, 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 do-ta-de-ta. Do that one more time. One, 2, ready, speak. Do-ta-de-ta, 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 do-ta-de-ta. Do-ta-de-ta, 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 do-ta-de-ta. Keeping the metronome at 60, beats grouped into 4s, keeping with our set of quarter beat notes, so do-ta-de-ta. Again, we're going to say one set, and then we're going to follow that with 3 full beats of rest, where I want you to try and either mouth or whisper the continued do-ta-de-ta, so that subdivided quarter beat pulse. We'll do 2 of those patterns. Ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do-ta-de-ta. Do-ta-de-ta. Do that one more time. Ready, go. Do-ta-de-ta. Do-ta-de-ta. we can take any note value from our note value pyramid and any rest from our rest value pyramid, and we can add a dot to it to increase its duration or length. That dot will always add half of the value of whatever note it's dotting. So, pretending we're in 4/8 time, where we would have 4 beats per measure, and for the bottom number, that will tell us what kind of note gets a beat. So we'll think of it as the denominator of a fraction. This tells us that the 8th note is our beat or pulse note. So in this scenario, our 8th note and 8th rest will receive 1 beat. Our quarter notes and quarter rests will receive 2 beats each. 4 beats for our half notes and half rests, and 8 beats for our whole notes and whole rest, just a half a beat for a 16th note or 16th rest. So if I created a dotted whole note by putting a dot to the right of the note head, well, the whole note itself is already going to be worth 8 beats, and then the dot is worth half of whatever note it's dotting. So half of 8 is 4. So this would be a total of 12 beats in this time signature in 4/8 time. I could take a half note and I could add a dot to the right of its note head. And in this time signature, a half note is worth 4 beats. Its dot would be worth half of the half note, so it'll be worth 2. That's a total of 6 beats. Notice that this dotted half note is worth half as much as the dotted whole note. So it would take 2 of the dotted half notes to make 1 of the dotted whole notes. Then we have a quarter note that we could add a dot to by putting it to the right of the note head. That quarter note would receive 2 beats in 4/8 time, and its dot would be worth half of the note it's dotting, so 1 beat for a total of 3. Notice that 2 dotted quarter notes would equal 1 dotted half note. You could take an 8th note and add a dot to the right of its note head, and this would be worth 1 beat for the 8th note plus half of that value, so half a beat for its dot for a total of 1.5 beats. Notice that it would take 2 of those dotted 8th notes to equal 1 dotted quarter note. So the dotted quarter note is worth twice as much as the dotted 8th note. We're going to practice using beat subdivision to read some increasingly complex rhythms. So we're going to assign the quarter note as the pulse or beat note. So it'll be worth 1 beat. Let's just fill in our pyramid here. 1 beat for quarter notes, and that will be do. Half a beat for each 8th note or 8th rest. So those together will be our do days. And then just a quarter beat for each 16th note. So that's what we'll use the do, ta, day, ta syllables for. So moving to our examples here, the first thing we're going to do is mark off where our do's would fall, where our quarter note beats would fall. So we're going to add up 1 quarter note, that's 1 beat. So we're going to mark a slash right there in red. And then we have 4 16th notes. Well, we know that each 16th note is worth a quarter of a beat, so 4 together, that's 1 beat. So our do falls right on the first one, do, ta, de, ta. We mark it with a slash. Then we have an 8th note followed by 2 16th notes. So we're going to mark a slash right there. And then we're going to mark one more slash right on top of this final quarter note. In order to decide which pulse or subdivided pulse I should keep track of while we realize this example, I'm just going to look for the smallest note value, and those are the 16th notes. So I'm going to choose to keep a steady stream of do-ta datas going. I want to draw your attention to this group right here, just to show you how we'll go about decoding this. So I know do falls here. And I'm going to be saying do-ta datas. Remember that each of those syllables is worth a quarter of a beat. And we know it takes 2 16th notes to equal 1 8th note. 2 quarter beats to equal 1 half beat. So I'm going to make sure I've said do ta before I play or say the next note, before I say the 16th note, and then the ta will fall right on this. What I'm going to do in practice for now is to say this do very loudly. I'm going to whisper or mouth the ta, or at least internally say that, and then I'll know exactly where to put this next 16th note and the ta. So, for example, it would be do-ta, data, do-ta, data, and eventually we make this ta very, very quiet. So do data, do data. We're going to set the metronome at 50, and I want you to try and keep a steady stream of do-ta, datas going under that pulse. When you don't need to be speaking the note values you're seeing on the page, then mouth or whisper loudly or just internally say the other syllables. Our metronome is very slow at 50. Clapping the beat. Ready, clap. Ready, speak. Do, do-ta, data, do, data, do. Moving on to the next example, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mark our quarter note or do beats first, our 1 beat notes. It's our unsubdivided pulse. So 1/8 note plus 2/16 is worth 1 beat. So I'm going to start that do right on that first note. That means that my next do will have to fall here. 4/16 together are worth 1 quarter note. So that's the full beat right there. You'll notice again, they're all beamed together into 1 beat chunk. And then we have another 8th note with 2/16. That's a 1 beat chunk. So I mark that do right at the beginning of that group. And then here's our last do. Set our metronome at 50. Try to say that steady stream of do-ta, datas, whispering or mouthing or internally saying the syllables that don't need to be said loudly because there's a note value represented on the page. Clapping the beat one more time. Ready, clap. Ready, speak. Do, data, do-ta, data, do, data, do. Moving to our final example, again, we'll mark the do's or 1 beat marks with a red slash. So I'm going to mark the first note right here, an 8th note with 2/16 notes. So that beat is completed and accounted for. I'm going to mark the next one here then. 2 8th notes together equal 1 quarter note. So that is complete. And then another slash mark at the start of this set of 16th notes. 4 16th notes together are going to be equal to 1 full beat. So that do is complete, and here's our final one. I'll just draw your attention right here to this group. Since I'm saying do-ta, datas, and those are worth a 16th note for each syllable, I'm going to make sure that I've said 2 of them before this 8th note gets to speak on day. So for now, I could perform it this way. Do-ta, data. So my ta is quite loud. Do-ta, data. Okay, and then eventually just mouthing or internally saying the tas. Do, date. Clapping the beat again. Ready, go. Ready, speak. Do, data, do, day, do, ta, data, do.